Hello everyone, welcome to the Old Man and the Read. My name is Jerry. Today I'm going to discuss the books I've read by another favorite writer of mine, E.L. Doctorow. E.L. Doctorow was an American novelist born in 1931 and died in 2015. He's best known for his historical fiction, and it mingles. His stories always mingle real characters with fictional ones. But just an exceptional writer. Wrote incredibly good books, and so I'll show you the books I've read by him and try to say a little bit about them. Again, these are books I read several years ago, many years ago, so I've had to brush up on exactly what it is they're about, but I'll show you the books. The first book he published was in 1960, Welcome to Hard Times. And this is about a small little town in the Dakota Territories. And one day the man from Bodie rode into town. He immediately started wreaking havoc there, mayhem, raping, murdering, and eventually burning the town down. The citizens of the town, most of them just cowered in fear and hid. There were a few that attempted to do something, but they each paid a price for it. After he left, then most of the citizens left the town also, and it left just the mayor, Blue, and a handful of others to try to rebuild. The next book I have, it was published in 1971, the Book of Daniel, and just an exceptionally good book. This follows a young man, Daniel Isaacson, who's investigating the conviction and execution of his parents for spying. And the story is based loosely around the actual true story of the Rosenbergs, who were tried and executed for spying. But it's an extraordinarily well-written book, and it's both a political novel as well as a family novel. The next book he published was 1975, Ragtime, and this is actually more of a novel about a period of time in America in the early 1900s. It's based in New York, and it's a story that includes both actual as well as fictional characters, some of the actual ones being Houdini, J.P. Morgan, and Henry Ford. In 1980, he published Loon Lake, and this follows Joseph Korzeniowski, and he is a young man who follows a fairly meandering path after high school, and he goes to New York City, and but is unable to really find work, and he joins a carnival, but then he tires of all of that and goes into the Adriatic Mountains, where he enters the property of a rich industrialist on Loon Lake. He befriends the owner and goes to work for him, but then later he and the wife of a gangster run off together. They steal a car and take off, but then she leaves him, and then he makes it back to Loon Lake and continues his life. In 1985, he published World's Fair. This is an absolutely beautifully written book, and it's about a young boy growing up in the 1930s New York, and it's very much based on Doctorow's own youth growing up in New York. But it's basically just a series of remembrances of events and people in his life, but the real true goodness of the book is the writing itself. In 1989, he published Billy Bathgate, and this is a story of a young man who attempts to escape his impoverished tenements in the 1930s, and he ends up joining a mobster gang led by Dutch Schultz. In 1994, he published The Waterworks. This is a story that's narrated by a man named Mr. McIlvaine, and he's the editor of a newspaper, and he is talking about one of his freelance writers, a man named Martin Pemberton, and Martin disappeared shortly after seeing his father. He believed his father to be dead and buried, but he saw him riding by in a carriage with a group of other old people. This led the editor, McIlvaine, into a search to locate Pemberton, and it's a story full of intrigue and culminates in the exposure of a brilliant but mad doctor. In the year 2005, he published The March, and this is basically a fictional account of Sherman's march to the sea at the end of the Civil War. It involves a wide variety of characters, primarily Sherman, but lots of other characters, and it's about his scorched earth policy. There's really no plot in it. It's just about the devastation that the war had on the people and how it affected their lives. In the year 2009, he published Homer and Langley, and this is a fictional story based on a true story about the Collier brothers, Homer and Langley. Homer was blind, but Langley had gone to war in the First World War, and he was had suffered from mustard gas. But after the death of their parents, the brothers then lived in their house, and they slowly started becoming reclusive. Langley became collecting things and started becoming a hoarder, and the house began to fill up with his junk. Homer, who was already blind, went deaf, and he became totally isolated from the world, and both of the men slowly slipped into madness. And the last book I have by Doctorow was published in 2014. This is Andrew's Brain, and it's probably one of the most unusual books I've read. But it's written as if the protagonist is talking to his therapist about just a whole variety of subjects, from his marriages to his association with the president, who at the time was George W. Bush. but just a very peculiar book, but extremely well written. So those are the books I've read by E.L. Doctorow. He just wrote incredibly good books, interesting subjects, but just a wonderful writer. So I want to thank you for watching the video, and hopefully you'll watch another. Thanks.